So we can get started because we started 2:10 and it's 2:11. So welcome everyone to Engaging Students in a Virtual Science World. My name is Tantalea Soden and I teach at the Goodwill Excel Center in Washington, D.C. So it's really good to be here to be able to present to you all. Don't judge too hard. And my lovely moderator and co-teacher, so we work together every day, is Ms. Susan Melifonwu. So she's going to be helping me out. So first line of business is I want everybody to take a few minutes to do a questionnaire that's on SurveyMonkey. So Ms. M is going to post the link in the chat so that you're able to go to the link and complete the SurveyMonkey for us.
Can everyone see the link? Okay.
Just a couple of more minutes for the survey. So those of you who are just arriving in the room, there's a link that's in the group chat to a quick survey before we get started. So I'm going to get started. For those who, thank you for completing the Survey Monkey. And we'll let you know why that was important a little later on in the session. So today's objectives, so by the end of this presentation, participants will be able to determine what makes a lesson engaging, identify obstacles to teaching science virtually, and to be able to actually outline an engaging lesson collaboratively. So those are our goals today. So the first thing we're going to do is, well, the next thing we're going to do is do a Jamboard question. So I'm not sure how many people have actually done Jamboard, but it's really cool. It's in Google, and you're able to post Post-it notes to responses on the actual whiteboard. So on the first Jamboard, I'd like you all to answer the following question. What are some barriers your students might face in a virtual environment? So what this looks like, and Ms. M has posted the link. So we go back and forth a lot in here. A link in the chat. So when you go, actually click on the link, you'll be sent to a Jamboard page. And the way Jamboard works is you can click on a sticky note and type your response in on the sticky note. So the great thing about Jamboard is even if you're on a phone, your students could use the Jamboard as well. As long as they have access to the link, they can click on the link and type responses on the sticky notes and post them on the whiteboard.
I'm not seeing sticky notes.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm actually sharing the right page. So this is the Jamboard here. And on the left side, there is a little square with lines in it. Those are the actual sticky notes.
Huh, I don't have that.
Yeah, I don't have those little icons on my left side either.
Are you on your phone?
PC.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. So if you don't have the sticky notes and you aren't able to put it on Jamboard, then you can just type your responses into the chat and we'll transfer them over. So no worries.
For me, I'm on view only, so I can't edit it. Am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, I'm in view only as well.
Okay, that might be my problem. Hold on, let me go back and then make sure I changed it. There we go. Okay, now try it.
Success. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. See, barriers, overcoming barriers. We teachers have barriers as well. I forgot to give the editing version. So I like Jamboard too because it can be anonymous, or you can, if you're working with your students or having your students use it, you can have them make sure to tell them to put their name to get credit at the bottom. And the sticky notes can actually be manipulated. So like if it's an assignment that you're trying to categorize, then you can actually move the sticky notes into categories. So a couple more seconds. So some of the barriers that you all have posted: lack of collaboration between students, a loss on hands-on learning, a lack of technology skills or familiarity, and confidence, less interaction, and more relevance on reading comprehension. So it is important with dealing with a virtual world that we identify the barriers that our students have. Before we can engage them, we must know what their barriers are. So how do we overcome these barriers? So the first part is just what we did, is identifying barriers. So that first, when you first came in and it was a Survey Monkey, that survey is one that we use to help identify barriers that students have technology-wise. Polls can be done, surveys, and even having a class discussion about things that students are able to do or aren't able to do online, or what their fears are. Identifying those barriers and having students voice their issues, have them gives them power over their online learning as well. Their voices are heard. So that's the first thing. And then once we identify those barriers, we have to address those barriers. So one way that we're going to address barriers that I'm going to focus on today is the collaborative grouping approach. So one more Jamboard. So in order to do collaborative grouping, we have to understand that this online virtual world has to be engaging. So what I want you to do is to pick one of these questions and find the page that addresses that question on Jamboard. And I want you to tell me, what does engagement look like? What makes a lesson engaging? And how do you know if your students are actually engaged? Because we as teachers need to know what exactly are we looking for. So if you haven't used Jamboard before, up at the top, there's 1 out of 5 frames. So if you scroll over to the next frame, it tells you the question that you will be answering. So if you're answering what does engagement look like, it'll be on frame 2. Frame 3, there we go. What makes the lesson engaging? And frame 4, how do you know if your students are actually engaged? So someone posted, how do you know if students are actually engaged? They are unafraid to ask questions, laugh, and make mistakes. That's excellent. I think we lost the sticky note that was in 3. So what makes a lesson engaging? Students are actually asking and answering questions. Students are supporting each other. And what does engagement actually look like? Students are actively participating. Excellent, good. So if we're done with the Jamboard, I want everybody to come back to the main PowerPoint. So what actually is engagement? So engagement is an emotional commitment by students, or an emotional commitment students have to their studies and the actual school environment. This includes active and meaningful participation, as well as collaboration with their peers. So our job as science teachers is to make sure that virtual science is actually engaging, because we're, like you all stated earlier, we're missing those hands-on approaches. So there are a couple of main components that we can get students engaged virtually in science. And the first one, catch students' attention at the beginning of the lesson. It might seem like a no-brainer, but a lot of times we forget that part. So we'll give them the objectives and say, this is what you're gonna learn, but we have to make it relevant to the students. We have to catch their attention in some manner. So that's very vital, because once we have their attention, everything that comes after that, they'll be willing to do. They'll be motivated to do. So we have to catch their attention by relating it to them or giving them something that's cool or questioning, maybe polarizing question, something that grabs their attention to get them started. Once we grab their attention, we have to make sure, and a lot of it, we hear this all the time, layering those questions, scaffolding those questions, so those questions build upon each other. And then, of course, this is science, so we have to make our lessons interactive, because we can no longer just give them hands-on labs. So we have to do something to supplement that virtually. So here's an example of what we use to catch our students' attention. So this will be like a do now. So would you rather? Would you rather purchase this beautiful looking tomato here or these tomatoes over here? And as a student, on first glance, most of them will want to purchase the one on the left. It's a nice plump tomato. That's what they go into the store. That's what they see. It's gorgeous. This will be an introduction to a lesson on GMOs, genetic modification. So understanding that in order to get these beautiful plump tomatoes that you see, there has to be methods that farmers put in place to prevent them from looking like these, which we call ugly tomatoes, which are actually not bad at all. But because people have a preference for visualization, this is what they go for. So getting students to actually see that that's something that they do will get them to have a better understanding. So this catches them. This brings them in the beginning of the lesson. And then you would refer back to this at the end, where your minds change based upon what you learned in the lesson. Now, I won't go over scaffolding questions because we've done tons of PDs on scaffolding questions. So, but I would like to pull out some collaboration techniques. So the third part is getting students to be able to work with each other. So after we've pulled in their attention, we've engaged them in our lesson. Now we need to have something that they show for what they learn, or their actual involvement in learning. So this is where that collaboration comes in. Most of the time, a lot of what we heard during the COVID is that we have a lot of students who do not have access to the technology to do things like virtual labs. So a lot of virtual labs we have, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen some of these, the PhET lab simulations, which actually can play without Flash, but the McGraw-Hill virtual labs are really good but there's a problem. We need Flash to run them. So not everybody has the Flash capabilities. The Concourse Consortium has some wonderful labs too. Especially we just used the GeneVenture for the genetics lab that they have on the dragons, which is amazing. But in order to do that, you have to have web access and actually good internet service, or if not, it's slow moving. So that's the virtual lab side. The other side is actually group projects and presentations, because there's a lot that we can do to make these lessons creative for our students. So most of the time we see PowerPoints, but I've even stopped giving PowerPoints. I like doing infographics because it helps them to be more creative with how they present their information. And depends on what subject you're doing. There's a lot of free Pedigree software that's online. Cambro is another one. So just coming up with actual websites that are free, that don't necessarily need to be downloaded, or it's not an app that students can actually use virtually to present information. So the important thing about collaboration is those roles. When you're doing a lab, we all know about lab, we assign roles for students in labs, or students when working in groups. The same thing is going to be when we're working in an online setting. So collaboration roles can be assigned or chosen based on students. So that Survey Monkey that you did in the beginning is actually in preparation for those roles. So that will be a survey that we would give to our students to see what actual access they have, and we will group them based upon that. So you have a coordinator that keeps track of the group, keeps the group on track, make sure they ask key questions of the group, and kind of evaluates the group's performance. Does this look good enough? Is this challenging enough? And a lot of times there could be, you can give the coordinator a list that they can go by to see if their group is on task and are actually being challenged. The next one will be our technician. So our technician is usually the students who have better internet access or accessibility to laptops that can actually run programs. Then we have a researcher. A researcher could even be someone who's on their smartphone. So they might not have access to the actual labs per se, but they're able to get into Zoom chats. They're able to look on their phone browser and research information, find websites as needed. And then you have someone who's a recorder who can actually take notes for the group or fill out written assignments and help put things together. So these are important because, like we said in the beginning, a lot of our students don't have access to technology. Some do. So we group students based upon the technology they have and how they can work together. So those who have phones can still participate in virtual labs with someone who has the actual capability of running the lab. So they work together as a group with whatever they have and pull it together. Which is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have you all work. So, Ms. M, oh, sorry. So what Ms. M has done,
I'm waiting for one more person, two more people for the survey.
okay,
And just give me 1 minute.
okay, perfect. So what Ms. M has done is she's looked at the survey and she's divided you all into groups based upon those same criteria. So we're looking at a couple of things. We're looking at what access you have to technology, as well as what subject areas you teach. So you'll be working in a group to create, and I know we don't have long because this was a short session, but instead of a mini lesson, an outline of something that you could do and expand upon when you leave here to be used in your virtual class. So in your groups, you're going to select a topic, identify the role. So each individual will have a role based upon what I showed before. And in your outline, you want to make sure that you have something that will catch your students' attention and include something that include an interactive component. So like a survey, a poll, Jamboard, something that as you're teaching, they can go to. It's like a mini break to be able to go and answer questions or participate. And then afterward, have actual virtual activity or a lab like most of us are doing. So FET or the Concord Consortium has a lot of good ones as well. And or have a project or assignment that utilizes virtual sites. So sometimes you can have students working on virtual labs, and instead of just giving them worksheets to fill out, give them a set of criteria on what the outcome should be and have them present or create a project based upon what they've done in the virtual labs. Oh, keep going back. And I'm not the best at using PowerPoint. So any questions before we go into our breakout rooms on what your job is? So remember, when you go in there, going back to those roles, you need to make sure you have someone who's a coordinator, someone who's a technician, someone who's a researcher, and someone who's a recorder.
Okay, are we ready?
Thumbs up if you're ready. Okay. So we have everybody in the Zoom room? I mean, the breakout room?
Let's see, one. Okay, yes, everyone should be in a breakout room now.
So we put the 15-minute timer on the breakout room, or
Yes.
I guess it's gonna be, yeah, so our question and answer is gonna be a little less than that,
Yes. Mhm.
but that's fine. I just as long as we had the experience, and we can always have the questions on the Jamboard that I can answer.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, because you have the host ability.
Yes, I'll check in on them.
Okay, I was about to say, can you send me to one of the breakout rooms and then I'll come back? I just want to check in on one.
Okay, will do. Let's start with number 1.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Are you ready to go on to the next one?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. We only have 2 rooms.
Okay.
Did you go? You see it?
Nope. Oh, wait a minute. Join breakout room.
Yeah, 2.
Okay, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, that's already, we have about 3 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
And we're gonna have to ask them to email us about the questions and answers. Maybe we can take one, but
Okay.
our time is, it's 2:56.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That time went by so fast.
I know, you know what? I think we only extended things maybe about 3 minutes, and that's because I had to contact the right person for the breakout rooms. And then he had to redo the assignment so that I can have the breakout rooms myself. Otherwise, they would have been done by room 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the gentleman that you see here, room 5, he's there to help us out.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Room 5, gentlemen.
Okay, I'm gonna let them know that the rooms will close out in 1 minute.
Okay. Hello?
Yes, we're here.
Okay, okay, we're all back. Okay, so. Sorry, so we ran a little bit over the time, but that's fine. So the takeaway that I want you, or that I wanted us to come out with was to think about some of these questions about our collaboration together. Like, so what were some of the challenges with that, with the collaboration? And what were some of those strengths? Because this is important to understand if you're using collaboration virtually with your students. And were you actually engaged with the process? And why or why not? Because understanding whether you were engaged will help us understand if our students will be engaged when it's time for them to collaborate. And how could you actually use this process to benefit your students? So I know our time ends at 3, and if you have any questions, my email is provided here. And also you could go to the Jamboard. Frame 5 is the questions. So any questions that you may have that you'd like for me to answer, or even any comments or suggestions, or I heard people sharing ideas about sites that are virtual sites for students, you can share it on that Jamboard, and I'll make sure that everyone has access to the Jamboard once it's done.
Sounds good.
Thank you
Sorry,
all.
your email address again was what?
Huh?
What was your last name? I'm sorry.
Oh, Hall, Tantalea.Hall. My email
Okay.
is different from my my actual name. I just got married.
Okay.
So
Congrats.
Tantalea.Hall at Goodwill Excel Center. And like I said, so I'll make sure that everybody have access to the Jamboard. And I appreciate you all. This was my first virtual PD, so thank you
Thank
for
you.
being so patient with me. I appreciate it.